So I just wanted to kind of start out that, as I want that to be like the cadence in which we talk about this comic, and I wonder like what you like. When I first saw this, I was really compelled by what he had to say. Like it was an interesting reversal of what I thought of what Superman meant. And that. So I want to hear like what your thoughts about this. Or we can just start directly with the comic.
Well, I think the dichotomy he draws between Spider-Man and Superman is to some extent artificial. Obviously many of Spider-Man's features inhere in him. To a certain extent, he wakes up as Spider-Man. And certainly other superheroes wake up where they are. Not all of them experience like a Hulk-like abnormal transformation into this other thing. Many of them have kind of a persistent superhero identity, so...
Like mutants, the X-Men.
Yeah, exactly. And so, but they experience a latency and a kind of a period when they suddenly discover it and then have to reconcile their alter egos with their new private identity, which is something Superman never had to do. So that point is taken.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought he was saying. That granted, yes, there are, when you fully embody what it means to be like that, I guess that character in a sense. But yeah, you're right. That's. Superman never went through that transition, like that reversal, like back to that point. Like that he was fully reconciled at the beginning as that superhero. And so I thought that was an interesting distinction between the rest of.
And I would also suggest that a lot of the features that he attributes to Clark Kent as a part of the critique, the meanness and the mildness, inhere in Superman as well. He's a notorious weenie. That's he's always trying to avoid hurting people and saving boxes full of kittens. And
absolutely,
this is just. And he pounds the tar out of people, but they're always designated Xenos of some kind.
Right. Exactly. So,
what points did you?
Yeah, I have. Let's see here. So I thought, to start out with, there's this interesting point that this one philosopher that I like, Slavoj Žižek, when he talks about the distinction with, when you look at a story, for instance, he uses sci-fi or fantasy. If you remove that fantastical element, what is a story really? So I thought I like to go from that, just remove the fantastical element of Superman, and what is it? That for him, that's the actual story, and so I kind of went that route in reading this book, and I had a few points that I felt that I was compelling, is that Superman as father, coming to grips with that. There's a couple of points in this comic where it was punctuated by this domestic element of the child, and then right in the beginning, the child without the mother, and it's never really. But that's what's really strange. That's never really resolved. Right. He just kind of tapers off, And the second point is when the child and the teenager and his mother, have this tiff, and then Superman comes in and almost directs the focus away from that. So I find that really strange. It just doesn't seem to fit with what's going on in my mind.
Well, and in the interview on television, he disclaims the maternal role in the JLA, but everyone is pushing it back onto
exactly.
I'm not a role model.
Right. So I just wanted to hear thoughts on that. That's.
I'm not sure if you take the fantastical element out, if you still even have a story.
It's really just someone dealing with their mortality when everything else.
There's definitely a lethal struggle going on. But what punctuates the struggle, what makes the whole struggle worth reading as opposed to being any other struggle, is that this is the unkillable man. This is the man who can do what no one else can do, and everyone else is just getting the tar beaten out of them. And he's the only one who stands a chance, and now he's dead. So, I guess in a sense it's sort of like an Iliadic story. You've got the one man who can turn it around, and instead of sulking in his tent, he's going to bat and winds up dead.
And I think that the reason why he's allowed to die in this is precisely at this moment, and where he, granted, I feel it's kind of band-aided up the next if that's a word, where he ignores the plea. He becomes like a utilitarian. The scene where he's screaming out, like this child is screaming out for his help. He can hear him, but he knows that like I have to be utilitarian about it. I have to go after Doomsday because that's the greater threat. Like I can let them die in a sense. And that's like the death of Superman for me. Like that moment.
Really?
But the next page over, he also says the rest of Justice League is still there, right? Mm-hmm. They can help him.
Yeah, but it's almost like he's trying to justify doing it.
It's something that Superman's never had to do.
Exactly.
He's always been able to save everyone in Metropolis and
do whatever.
Jimmy Olsen.
But if you'll note, though, the narrator approves his utilitarian calculus by allowing him to save the people on the next page.
Right. Well,
he gets to have his cake and eat it too because he made the right tough decision.
See, I feel that there's the sequence with starting on. Let's see, where is that? 73 to 80, where they come back to the story of the child and the mother, and that sequence, right here, like starting at 78, ending at 80. Like if you take this page out entirely, where he saves it, it's almost like it seems like it's just thrown in there. It just seems like they haven't really address what the other comic ended, like the previous comic ended with. It's like patchwork. Like they felt like, okay, we can't really have Superman like this, so we're just gonna glaze it over.
The industry term is the retcon.
Yeah. Okay, retcon.
Well, I don't know. I actually found it very satisfying in a certain way because the utilitarian calculus caught my notion as well. Not so much because it represented a huge deviation from Superman, but because it represented the kind of superhero behavior that snot-nosed kid wanted. He wanted to see that sort of brash, unfeeling thing, and he hated Superman because he was such a goody-goody. So Superman becomes the kind of hero this kid wishes he was, and leaves him to die, and then winds up saving him anyway. And the kid's mind is blown. It's. I think that's as much intention with that as it is with.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. That'd be. I mean, you could literally even just take out this and then just this and then have that scene be the next. Like you'll see where he drops him into the liquid and then jumps out of it. Yeah. So that's pretty much what that's what Doomsday. He seems to have this, it's this continuation of either he's in liquid or blown up with a gasoline, and then it's like that like anime where that every time that you see someone get blown up, that they're not dead. It's like that's precisely at that moment. If I don't know if you're familiar with, but I've seen a few anime. It's always that. It's this huge brawl, and then there's a huge cloud of dust and debris, and then you think oh, he's dead finally, and then you see that when the dust dissolves, he's still there. And, it's like the trauma of that. That's
most of their clothes are still intact.
Yeah, right. For some reason, their clothes keep re-upping every. Once it's tattered and then it's not tattered, but. So it gradually dissolves, but yeah.
Well, if they had taken out that page with just when he went back to save the kid and his family, Doomsday wouldn't have been able to kill the cop, wouldn't have been able to hit the helicopter, which would have led to. So that helicopter's still there. They wouldn't have sent another helicopter out.
Well, they sent that helicopter for. Isn't that?
They sent 2 helicopters
to save the. To save the child, or
to deal with Doomsday.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
the first helicopter was investigating. Doomsday destroyed that one. Before he destroyed it, they sent a mayday.
Yeah.
So they sent a second helicopter. If they hadn't sent that second helicopter, that would have changed what's going on 6 pages down.
It was yet another opportunity for, while Superman's distracted, for Doomsday to just beat the living snot out of
something else.
Yeah. On the subject of clothes and clothes-related problems, I mean, did anyone else find the whole opening sequence where he literally had a hand tied behind his back?
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, that was worse.
Yes.
Yeah,
well,
that's
crazy. That's one of the things I got this thing for. That goes into his history.
Oh yeah.
Oh, they actually have a history. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be nice to know because that was one of my major complaints.
Do you guys know who? Darkseid is?
Yeah.
Well, before Darkseid's the one that put Doomsday on Earth.
Okay.
When